And Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome in. Thank you for joining me today. I'm T, for those of you who don't know who I am. And welcome to our new show, Monday Murders. I thought I'd start off with the Heuermann. Although for me to keep saying Heuermann is so weird because growing up with the Heuermanns, we didn't call them Heuermanns. It's like that, I guess, is the correct pronunciation, but I guess as children, um, we call them Herman. I know it sounds crazy, but Craig always introduced himself as Craig Herman. That's just how we knew him. And hanging out with them, and 12 years of school I went with them. Well, 12 years with his brother Craig, who I don't know is so innocent in this kind of scenario here. I don't know. We'll see. I guess only time will tell if he truly is innocent. So, those of you who aren't familiar with the case, the Gilgo, well, he was first known as the Craigslist murderer, right? That was the original story around Long Island. For those of you that don't know, I was born and raised in Massapequa Park, Long Island, which is where this story originates from, or at least didn't originally originate from. It originated in Gilgo Beach. However, now since they have arrested Rex Heuermann, the older brother, um, who is now being accused of the killings, and we'll talk a little bit about. For those of you that aren't familiar with the story, we'll talk a little bit about the story, but I'd like to maybe today just kind of concentrate a little bit on the family, their home life, what I remember, and especially as a young girl, because I do remember when their father passed away. And I do remember bits and pieces. And Craig and I, because their last name was Heuermann, my last name, my maiden name is Haynes. So we were both H, and we both were in the same homerooms. We also were in many of the same elementary schools. We went to the same elementary school for 6 years. We went to junior high together for 2 years. And I'm going to say we went to high school together. However, I don't think Craig graduated. To be honest with you, I don't remember him later in school. If he was in the last year or two, then I just forget. We were not friends at the time. We didn't hang out much. I don't even remember him in my homeroom in senior year. Not that I showed up much in. Moved too much in my senior year, but I don't know. It's crazy. But anyway, silly stuff that you remember, and then there's things that you gotta I've heard stories, and then I remember certain things. So we'll talk about it as we go through it. But at the end of the day, it's funny because there are there's one thing somebody brought up about the drama club, and I didn't remember that Rex was in the drama club. In 1980, we did Arsenic and Old Lace, and somebody said that there was a story that they put on, and I can't find it, but there was some kind of story about, and I don't remember this, that the weights on the curtains were set in a way to make our 95-pound girl that started in the play. And I don't remember if that was Tina. My one good friend growing up, Tina, I thought she starred in that play, but I can't remember. And I can't find the story. And you try to remember. I would have been in 9th grade in 1980. So it's hard to remember everything. And they said that he weighed down the curtains. He must have been part of the backstage, which I could believe, because I remember Craig, his brother, was always AV squad, right? They were that type. They were kind of a little awkward, a little kind of nerdy, dorky. I'll actually bring up a photo here in a second. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm gonna show you guys a little bit about what I remember. And I brought a picture of him and I in the 6th grade. So hold on a second. I'm going to bring that up just so you can see what the size of him even in the 6th grade was. So let me do that. Hold on a second. Let's see. Let's go here. Let's go here. And then no, I can't do that. Let's do this. Let's go here. There we go. Okay. All right, let me bring this up, see if you guys can see this. So I have a picture. Let me actually put it up a little higher. So if you guys can see this photo on your screen, I'm sure just by looking at this picture, hopefully you guys can figure out who he is here. It's the largest man on the screen. So this is his brother, Craig Heuermann, and he's right above me, coincidentally. Yeah, that's nerdy me and the curly, funky hair. But anyway, this is him on the top row, top gentleman on the very top. So even in the 6th grade, I'm sure he was close to like 5'9", maybe. I'm not sure. I don't even remember. But he was a big dude, just like his brother. And I'm still not convinced that he is not involved in this in some way. And you want to talk about kind of it being a small world. So not only did we all grow up together and all go to school together in Massapequa Park, but Craig, ironically, now lives here down in South Carolina. He's actually in a town called Chester. But Craig didn't fare well in his young adulthood. In 1988, he was actually convicted of negligent homicide. He pleaded guilty to criminally negligent homicide. He actually killed an off-duty housing authority police captain. His name was Winnie something. I can't remember off the top of my head what the guy's name was now. But Craig was coked up, drugged up. He just had a lot of problems. They both had a lot of problems growing up. And it probably was a lot to do with their father, right? They grew up. I know we were in 4th grade when Craig's father passed away. I remember it happening. And his father was a space engineer. He was very smart. They came from a smart family. His father had a really good job. His mother never worked, that I remember anyway. But ironically, they lost their father. Craig was 10. Rex was 12. There was 2 other sisters. I can't even remember their names. They were older. I think Beth, maybe. I don't even remember. I could have looked it up, but I didn't. They were both older, probably like maybe born 2 or 3 years older than Rex. And they were probably 2 or 3 years apart. So they were probably out of high school when we went to high school. But long and short of it, Craig did have a very troubled life growing up. He was always like kind of nerdy, kind of a little bit of a doofus, a dork, so to speak. And I don't mean that negatively. I just mean because of the size and, kind of awkwardness and things like that. Those things, just you remember those things as kids. I mean, I was a little dorky too. Look at me here in 6th grade. Pretty funny, right? Look at that little ugly dress my mother has on me for picture day. But, that's just the way it was when we were growing up. You try to forget some of this stuff, but I'm also trying to remember some of these things, that went on as we were in school. And I never remember him being mean. I think we were friendly. for the most part, most of our years all through school. We never really per se hung out that much. I remember hanging out at the school a couple of times, but nothing that really, I can remember. Maybe playing some games on the street and stuff like that. So we didn't grow up on the same street. We ironically, my husband and I bought our home together on First Avenue in Massapequa Park, where their family home was, just 9 houses away. And honestly, when I bought our home there, kind of forgot that they even lived there, because it was not a house I frequented as a young girl or anything like that. It was only a joke that we used to have, because the house was so just in such disarray that Rob and I used to joke as we drove by it. We used to say that when we rehab homes, that's the first house we're gonna rehab, because the house was so disheveled and so just out of sorts. And I don't even remember the house as a young girl. So it may not have even been in that bad a shape 40 years ago. I don't know. Who remembers? But as you know, as remembering as some of these things go, I can just tell you that Craig moved over 20 years ago down here to South Carolina. That I know of. I don't know that he ever got married. I've heard he's had girlfriends on and off. I've heard now stories in South Carolina that he has not been a pleasant neighbor. He actually, and I've seen some of the fence pictures online where he's got skull and crossbones to keep out, no entrance, no warrant, no entrance, I think one of the signs says. And he's got no trespassing signs and things like that. Supposedly it's like a compound. And a crazy story is that a neighbor behind him was mowing his lawn on a Sunday, and Craig snuck up behind him and hit him over the head with a steel bar and knocked him out. And when the cops showed up, the cop said, "I told him not to mow his lawn on Sunday," was his comment. He supposedly is a contractor in construction. So his brother's an architect. He's in construction. His brother now owns 23 acres on the street where his home is. And Craig himself is in this large compound. I was going to actually put a map up of the actual area in South Carolina that he's in, but I didn't. But what I did put up, let me see if I can just go to it here. What I did put up was let me see if I can go. Yeah, a picture. Here's the picture of the green Chevy Avalon truck that they found in South Carolina. So this is at Craig's house here in South Carolina. This was originally Rex's truck, who they say witnesses have seen him driving, especially I believe it was the Amber Costello pimp who saw this truck the last time that Amber was seen. This was the particular truck that they saw. And for those of you who don't really know the story behind all of this, let me just tell you a little bit actually about the story, if you don't know about the Gilgo Beach murders and what the situation is, with everything. So let me go back here and bring up this slide. Let me see if I can move it here a minute. Okay, so the original story that everyone kind of knew was about Shannon Gilbert. This is a picture of Shannon Gilbert. She was the one that everybody was searching for originally. and they were trying to find her. She was reported missing. There was a lot of the family. Her mother was so adamant about finding her. And at the end of the day, Shannon was the one who led police to what we will call the Gilgo Four. So there was a recording. And as we go through this, and I will revisit this story again in a couple of weeks, I'm going to put a whole segment together about the entire Gilgo Beach murders and really, truly what happened, because I'm so familiar with the case because it was Long Island and because this is all we heard for so long, that I always think that everybody knows the entire story. And I apologize because I get it that a lot of people don't know the story. So Shannon Gilbert, there's a recording out there where she is involved in this kind of Oak Beach community, and she gets dropped off, and she's with this guy, Joseph Brewer. Now, ironically, I know Joseph Brewer. So when I worked for Chase, Joseph Brewer was my customer in the Babylon Chase. And I've spoken to Joseph Brewer. So it's kind of like 6 degrees of separation in my life because I know who Joseph Brewer is. And Joseph Brewer was responsible for bringing Shannon Gilbert to this house in Oak Beach. So when she calls 911, for whatever reason, now they've since cleared Joseph Brewer. He was a suspect in the disappearance of Shannon Gilbert, and they have since cleared him. And there was also a doctor involved. I don't know how innocent this doctor was, but we'll talk more about the doctor as well. There was a lot of corruption potentially with the actual police department at the time, hence why the case was just recently reopened and things have now started moving, because I don't know how much they wanted to investigate a lot of this stuff way back when with the original kind of Suffolk County Police Commissioner that was in charge during this kind of situation with Shannon Gilbert. And I don't know how much was covered up. I don't really know the whole T is normal, others are weirdos. Thanks, Jen. Excuse me, guys. Sorry. Anyway, so they covered a lot of stuff up. I believe that's my opinion. I don't know that to be fact, but it's just my opinion, just looking and listening and hearing things. Now, when you listen to the tape, and I'll play the tape for you guys in an upcoming thing, we'll put a whole segment together on the Gilgo Beach murder, and we'll talk about this. But one of the police officers that was on scene said that this doctor, and I can't remember his name right now, and it will come to me, was more of a suspect than anybody else at the time. And he was responsible for actually calling Shannon Gilbert's family and saying that he was helping her, and he took her in because he runs a halfway house for girls. These obviously were all, they called originally the Craigslist murderer because they were all call girls that they found on Craigslist. And they used to frequent a lot of these homes in the Gilgo Beach area, or an area known as Oak Beach. There was also a club there, and I see Rummage Raiders is talking about hanging out at the beaches after the clubs, but we used to hang at a place called Oak Beach Inn, OBI, if any of you have ever heard that. And one of the things I listened to was them questioning how he was able to dispose of any bodies here, because the part of Ocean Parkway that this is on seems very busy, and that wouldn't he be seen by passing cars and things like that, dumping bodies. But in those days, it wasn't as busy. It was quiet. It was dark. It was desolate. I could see having no problem pulling over to the side of the road and potentially dumping bodies and things like that, because it wasn't as crowded as it is today. You're talking about going back, 20 years ago. So there's a big difference between, Gilgo Beach today and Gilgo Beach of the days gone by. But anyway, for those of you who don't know about, what he's charged with and what he's not charged with, there were 4 what they called the Gilgo Four, and this is Melissa Bartholomew, Megan Waterman, Amber Costello, and Maureen Brainerd Barnes. And these were what they were, kind of called the Gilgo Four, because when they were looking for, excuse me, when they were looking for Shannon Gilbert, they didn't find Shannon. They came across 4 bodies on the side of the road, and it landed up being these 4: Melissa Bartholomew, Megan Waterman, Amber Costello, and Maureen Brainerd Barnes. Now, Rex has only been charged with 3 of the 4 of these women, Melissa, Megan, and Amber. They have not yet charged him with Maureen's murder. Lack of evidence, whatever the reasoning is, they can tie him to the 3, not necessarily the 4. The coincidence or the all of these bodies had in common was they were all wrapped in burlap. Now, burlap is something that they all had in common, even though on this stretch over the next, I'm going to say a year and a half, that they found bodies, because more bodies came up after these 4. They finally did find Shannon Gilbert, and they also did find, I believe it was 11 bodies in total. And these are the kind of the dates of the days that these 11 bodies were missing. I'm sorry, the 11 bodies were found. These are not when they went missing, because I do know Maureen Brainerd Barnes was the first one to go missing in 2007 of this list of bodies. So this was kind of where they found the different bodies. And we'll talk more about this when I get right into the extreme story of the entire Gilgo story, because they don't want to give Rex credit for all of these murders. Although as we dig deeper into this, I can definitely make a case for almost all of these. And you will see, even to the Asian male that they found. So the Asian male that was dressed in drag, I can make even a case of this based on some of the evidence that it's possible that he was a type of Rex's. So we'll talk more about that. But this is the timeline. And I also did want to show you guys and kind of point out to you. Let me go back. I didn't go back to the beginning of the tape far enough. Hold on. Let me just see if I can go. Oh, I didn't put it in here. All right. So let me share my screen. I just want to show you guys. Let me do this. Let me share my screen here. Let me stop this one. Let me do this. Share screen. And I'm going to put my map up here. Let's see if you guys can see this. Yeah, let me put this one up. So here's a map of Long Island that I've put up here. And just so you guys can see the map of Long Island, and you guys can get a better idea. I'll make it a little bit larger so you guys can see it. Let me see if I can kind of hone in a little bit better on this. See if I can make it a little bit larger without going completely out. I don't want to give it totally out. So Gilgo Beach, as you guys can see where that is, right? This is Ocean Parkway. Now, if you go directly across of Gilgo Beach, they always say, oh, it's in direct in line to Massapequa Park. And it is, if you look on this map, it's true. However, unless you're, riding in a boat here and there's land, where we lived in Massapequa Park is not near the water per se. Right? So you actually have to come very far south. You have to go into the shores of Massapequa, and then you would have to get on a boat and go to Gilgo to be exactly directly in front of Gilgo. So for most anyone who goes to Gilgo Beach, you go one of two ways. You either go the Wantua Parkway, or you come over here to I'll move over the thing. So here is where you would come through Captree, and this would be the Robert Moses Causeway. So you would actually have to go down Sunrise Highway, which is our major road that now Sunrise Highway does go directly through Massapequa Park, and then you would have to drive down the Sunrise Highway, come across the Robert Moses Causeway to get to the Gilgo Beach area, which we all did growing up as kids, right? We went to the OBI. There was also other clubs on there. Sometimes we went via the Wantua State Parkway, which would be on the other side, which you could do just as easily from Massapequa Park. If you see Massapequa Park here, Sunrise Highway, you go down to Wantua Parkway, which is just a few towns over. You take it down to Jones Beach, and then you can drive east to the Gilgo. And all the bodies were found along here on Ocean Parkway. And this was not a strange area for any of us growing up as kids on Long Island. We all frequent these areas. This was an area that we all knew. This was an area that we all traveled on. And there was a lot of clubs and stuff on here, not necessarily on this eastern part of Ocean Parkway. If you went to the western part of Ocean Parkway, you would go to other clubs. And I used to joke, most of the kids who lived on the South Shore in Suffolk County hung out like OBI and Points East, and most of the kids from Nassau County and West hung out. I can't think of the name of the club now that was down, because I didn't go there. I was the OBI girl. That's where I hung out. That was just me growing up. But I also, was did a lot of beach hanging out. Tobay Beach was our beach, town of Oyster Bay, which wasn't far from Gilgo, but it wasn't Jones Beach, because Jones Beach was a state park. So if you were not a town of Oyster Bay member, you would go to Jones Beach, or if you knew somebody who was in OBI or Oak Beach, you could go to Gilgo and other beaches there, or have Avalon, or you went to Robert Moses State Park. If you had, again, a Suffolk County residence, and you had residency there. So being in Massapequa, we had been part of town of Oyster Bay, so we always went to Tobay. But ironically, Rex worked at Jones Beach. So Rex was really familiar with all of Ocean Parkway, was hung out there on a regular basis, was up and down Ocean Parkway. I'm sure he hung out at the OBI. I'm sure that he, hung out at Tobay even with friends, like we all did. It was, it was always a thing that we did as kids growing up. So you knew Ocean Parkway, and people questioned like how you dump bodies here, because it was so dark, it was so desolate, but you got to know it. You just did. Driving up and down, it was nothing. Pulling over on the side of the road, honestly, was nothing. Won't go there, but just saying, as a Long Island person, a lot of people can't see that as an outsider, but this was our life as teenagers. And in the 80s and 90s, it wasn't uncommon for no cars really to be on the road, unless it was club night or you were going out, and their cars were few and far between. there's no lights. There's a lot of stretch of Ocean Parkway that there is no lights. So could you pull a car off the side of the road in the dark? No one's going to see you. Can you, technically dig a hole, bury, commit a murder, do any of this stuff? Yeah, you could. And without being detected, and truly without really leaving any, yes, would you leave tire tracks? Probably, but who knows? I think he used a trolling boat. I guess that's possible too. I guess him using a trolling boat could happen as well. Because again, if you come back to the map, and I'll make it smaller again, I won't go that small. Let me just go down a little bit. And so just to kind of give you guys an idea of Biltmore Shores here is part of Massapequa. So if he had friends over here, here's John J. Burns Park, a big park in Massapequa. It backs up to the water. John J. Burns Park has a boat ramp. All of these canals down here in the shores all have canals and boat ramps. Had friends. We used to go out on boats here. This was just, again, the way of life as a Long Islander growing up there. If you had friends who had families with, boats and stuff like that, this is also how we got to the beach. We used to even go out and get in a boat and go with friends to the beach, and we'd be on the bay side. And there was a whole, in Tobay, there was a whole kind of cove. We used to hang out and dock the boat, drop anchor and swim and things like that. So there were so many different ways that you could go in and out of these canals. And if you guys can see all these little, waterways here within these little lands, there are ways that, you could have taken a boat around and done things that way. Now, what I will say is when you look at the Gilgo Beach murderers, and if we go back to those, bodies that kind of came into question here, where they found everybody from, Maureen to Amber, even to certain body parts that they found. Everything was found on one side except Shannon Gilbert. Shannon Gilbert was on the Oak Beach side of the water, and everybody else was on the other side. So again, they want to say maybe she wasn't even part of this, and I can believe that might be a possibility. I don't know, but we'll look at more of that as we go as well, just because it's very strange that most of the bodies were all on the one side of Ocean Parkway, whereas only one body was found on the other side of Ocean Parkway. So that could be a clue there in itself. I'm no detective. This to me is just fascinating, because a lot of this for me personally hits home, because I grew up with these boys. These boys literally went to 12 years of school with me. Rob and I bought our house together 9 houses away on First Avenue of Rex. And ironically, the minute we moved away, he got arrested. I actually happened to have been home the weekend that he got arrested. And I do have footage of that as well. Didn't come out that great. I put some of it up in my video yesterday, if anybody watched my 2023 video, just to kind of show you a little footage of the house. Again, the house was a disaster. It was such an out of footprint house for the neighborhood. It definitely was very distressed, and crazy for an architect to have a house, but it was like a shoemaker, right? Who has a pair of ripped shoes. Maybe the reason she was on the other side is maybe someone was on the other side and they wanted to get rid of her before he was caught that night. Could be an idea of why. True. Yes, absolutely. And there's so many possibilities, because one of the other questions came up about, the bodies not being close to one another. And this body seems like it got moved. Did he move bodies? Did someone move bodies? But there's a lot of animals, and, not to sound morbid and kind of grotesque. But to be honest with you, as bodies start to decompose, there's a lot of wildlife there. And, bodies could have been picked up, parts of them, and, pulled or moved to other locations. They weren't deeply buried, a lot of them. A lot of them were on the surface. A lot of them, nobody took really the time to kind of go and dig these bodies really deep. So who knows? Crazy as it may seem, those things do happen, and the decomposition, as well as animals, could cause a lot of movement as well. So again, we'll look at a little bit of it, but I wanted to offer in some crazy ideas of the brother, because I don't know if the brother is so innocent. I'm not saying he's completely involved in this, but the more I think about, both of them were very strange. And some of the stories now coming out of here in South Carolina, I would love to go knock on his door one day, but it sounds like he just wouldn't have anything to do. Although maybe if I said, hey, it's Teresa Haynes, he might. I don't know. I'd have to see. We would have to go and visit that and see if he would even be willing to talk to me. But I heard even he's handing out business cards, some crazy nonsense that he's a crazed lunatic and that leave him the F alone, and that he's just odd. We'll just leave it at that. I don't know. I just feel it's, but who knows? He had a very rough home life, growing up without a dad at the age of, 10 and 12. These two boys had two sisters and a mother. So, I don't know what went on behind closed doors. I can't honestly say that these two did not, cause other issues, or other things did not go on. They, they could have had, other situations with uncles, cousins, mentors. I don't know. But we'll look more into the family. I'm going to do a lot more research into more of the family, but I wanted to at least get this started with just a little bit of history with the brother anyway, and the story. If you guys haven't heard it, I'm going to put a whole Gilgo Beach montage together of what happened and led up to this. I'm going to see if I can dig some more. I actually might even question some of our classmates and see if anybody wants to. I know there was one gentleman, John Parisi. I know him well. He did speak up on the news. He talked a little bit on one of the videos, but we'll see. Maybe John will come on. He's been a good friend over the years, and we'll see if he don't want to add his 2 cents in. He was more friendly with Rex, and I was more friendly with Craig. He was older, and we'll see. But maybe we'll make it a little hit home. We'll make it a little closer to home and kind of talk about the actual backstories more so than the front stories, even though we'll keep you abreast on what's going on in the news. Last I heard, there's a big $1 million deal going down with the current wife, or ex-wife now, Asa Ellerup, who I just knew from sight. Wouldn't know her if I fell over, or to be honest with you. I think my sons I'm not sure which one, probably my younger one probably would know the daughter from school. Don't know if they were friendly, never asked them, not really sure. But they had to have probably been classmates at some point, so who knows. But anyway, we'll follow up, guys. I'm going to have a special one. I'll put it up after this for next week. We're going to actually do in series number 2, we're going to talk about serial killers and their zodiac signs. There seems to be a 4 zodiac sign clue to all serial murders, and we're going to talk about that. I think it's very interesting about the 4 signs that stand out in most serial killers, and we're going to talk about that on next Monday Murders. And I thank you guys for all coming in today and listening to my rant on the I got to get to say it right because it's not how I said it growing up. Heuermann's, and we always knew it at Herman's, but Heuermann's. And thank you guys. Happy New Year again. And I welcome you to this new series, and we'll see you on the next one. Have a great day, guys.